If you still believe this war is just battlefield updates, I'm about to ruin that comfort for you. Because what happened on the night of December 27th wasn't just Russia firing missiles again. It was something darker, something more calculated. It was Putin looking directly at Ukraine and honestly looking directly at the world and saying, freeze or surrender. And the terrifying part? He didn't say it in words, he said it in fire. That night, Kyiv endured waves of drones and missiles. Not 10, not 20. According to Ukraine's leadership, it was hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles, one of the heaviest overnight attacks yet. Sirens reportedly went on for hours. Power systems were hit. People didn't sleep in their homes, they slept underground. Now pause for a second and picture that. Not soldiers in trenches, civilians. Mothers holding babies in subway tunnels. Old men with their jackets pulled tight, trying to pretend they're not afraid. Kids trying to play little games just to keep their minds busy while the ground shakes above them. And while those drones screamed through the sky like mechanical demons, Putin's message wasn't complicated. You want talks? Here's my response. Because remember, the world was waiting for Trump and Zelensky to meet, with hopes of another push for negotiations. And Russia basically replied with a brutal reminder, negotiation only happens when you're weak enough to beg. That was the mood of the night. This is not just a military strike. It's political warfare. Putin didn't strike randomly. He struck when attention was shifting to diplomacy, to meetings, headlines, handshakes. And by doing it then, he was sending a signal. Ukraine is not walking into negotiations as a calm, equal partner. Ukraine is walking in bleeding. That's why this moment matters. Because Putin isn't just fighting Ukraine, he's fighting the concept of Ukraine being treated as independent. And the weapon he keeps using is the oldest one in history: terror. Hit energy systems, hit infrastructure, hit the nerves of ordinary people. Why? Because when the lights go out, fear goes up. And when fear goes up, leaders get pressured. That's the real battlefield. Now this is where the story flips. Because if that Russian strike was meant to break Ukraine's spirit, what happened next was Ukraine replying with something more humiliating than any speech. Ukraine didn't retaliate by sending angry statements. They retaliated by sending drones, and not one or two, but a coordinated drone pressure wave that crossed into Russian airspace and reached the one place Russia has always tried to protect above all: the illusion of safety around Moscow. That's the key word: illusion.
New video just coming in showing Ukraine's bold drone strike on Russian aircraft. This is 2,800 miles from Ukraine's border, 2,800 miles. CNN's international diplomatic editor, Nick Robertson, is joining us. He's monitoring all of this from London. What can you tell us, Nick?
Very dramatic video, Wolf. I mean, you're just looking at it there. You can see how close the drones get to the aircraft. You can see at one point they sort of fly under the fuselage of the aircraft. You can see a missile attached to the underneath of one of those aircraft. We're looking here at the Tupolev 95, the long-range strategic bomber with, it has 4 big propellers on it, a workhorse of Russia's long-range strategic capacity to send fast missiles into Ukraine. So a major part of their work.
Let's talk about what reportedly happened. As Ukrainian drones approached, Russian authorities triggered emergency air defense protocols and shut down major airports, including key international airports serving Moscow like Vnukovo and Sheremetyevo. And that sounds like a normal safety precaution, right? Wrong. This is not normal. This is panic. Because when a capital city closes its airports, it is basically announcing we can't guarantee control of our own sky. And the effects are immediate. Flights circling and running low on fuel, emergency diversions, cancellations stacking up like dominoes. Reuters has reported similar Ukrainian drone incidents, causing airport closures near Moscow in 2025. And here's what makes this psychologically lethal. In Moscow, war has been marketed to the public like a Netflix show. Something far away, something controlled, something you can switch off. But when airports close and flights get diverted, suddenly the war isn't over there. It's on your flight board. It's at your gate. It's in the airspace. This is not just disruption, it's humiliation, because the Kremlin has built its image on strength, and nothing exposes weakness like chaos in the capital. Now this part is key, because Ukraine's drone campaign wasn't only aimed at scaring Moscow, it was aimed at something more valuable than symbolism: fuel. There is a second phase, the destructive phase, in the Samara region, targeting the Sirens oil refinery. And this isn't some random industrial building. Reuters reported that the Sirens refinery had to halt processing after a Ukrainian drone attack that damaged it. Now let me translate what that means in simple terms. A refinery is not just money. A refinery is the bloodstream of a war machine. Tanks don't run on patriotism. Jets don't fly on propaganda. Armored vehicles don't move on Putin's speeches. They move on fuel. So when Ukraine hits a refinery, it is not trying to look tough. It is trying to do something brutally smart, starve Russia's battlefield strength from the inside out. Here's the thing people miss. When you hit tanks on the front line, Russia can replace them. It's expensive, yes, but they can replace them. But when you hit the infrastructure that feeds everything, now you are forcing Russia into painful choices. Do we prioritize fuel for the military? Or do we keep civilian fuel supply stable to prevent unrest? Do we protect refineries? Or do we protect troops? And that's why these drone strikes are more than attacks. They're pressure systems. Ukraine is basically saying, if we can't be safe, you won't be comfortable. Now let's add the human reality. Propaganda works when people are comfortable. But propaganda collapses when people can't heat their homes, can't drive their cars, can't get fuel. And it's not even new in history. Sooner or later, the Russian people will have to choose between the television, state media saying we are winning, and the refrigerator, real-life reality saying we are suffering. And trust me, when your house is cold, you don't care what the TV host is shouting. A freezing home doesn't respect propaganda. If Putin believed terror could push Ukraine into surrender, and Ukraine responded by shutting down Moscow's safe skies and hitting fuel arteries, then what happens next? Because now the war has entered a new phase. A phase where drones are not just weapons, they're strategy, they're psychology, they're economic warfare. And the scariest part? We are moving toward a future where 1,000 drones can be launched like a storm, and no air defense system, not even Russia's, can comfortably handle it. So as the world watches diplomacy, let's be honest, when most people hear airports closed, they shrug. They think it's just one of those annoying travel inconveniences like a delayed flight, lost baggage, or a pilot casually announcing, "We'll be taking a short detour," while your soul leaves your body. But in Russia, airport closures right now are not a small thing. They are a national humiliation. Because every time Moscow's airport shut down due to drones, it means one thing: the war has entered Russia's living room, and no amount of state television can edit that out. Let's talk about the cost. Each airport shutdown decision triggers millions of dollars in losses, flight route changes that waste fuel, emergency landings, cancellations, and the worst nightmare for any airline: insurance premiums that begin to climb like they're trying to escape the country too. Russian airlines like Aeroflot and Pobeda are already under pressure. Sanctions didn't just restrict Russia's economy, they strangled Russian aviation. Parts are harder to get, maintenance becomes complicated, planes get grounded, routes get cut. So when Ukraine forces Moscow's airspace to lock down again, that's not inconvenience, that's economic choking. It's like someone grabbing Russia's civil aviation industry by the collar and saying, "You thought war was only for Ukrainians to suffer? Sit down and feel it too." But here's the deeper issue. Aviation doesn't collapse quietly. If Russia's civil aviation begins sliding toward bankruptcy, it affects internal movement of workers' transport, of equipment, business operations, even logistics supporting the war. Because whether the Kremlin likes it or not, war requires a functioning society to fund it. Now let's go beyond money, because even if Russia could print the cash and cover losses, they can't print psychological stability. And that is what these attacks have shattered. For years, Putin's messaging was simple: obey me, and I will keep Russia stable. That was his unspoken social contract. You stay out of politics, you don't ask questions, you don't protest, and in return, the war stays far away. But this time, the war didn't stay far away. It flew into Russian airspace like a reminder from reality. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Ryabkov said something chilling: "We will not stop until Ukraine is a friendly country." That sentence is supposed to sound strong, but it loses its power when drones are exploding above Moscow. It starts sounding less like confidence and more like a man yelling from inside a burning house. Everything is fine. Everything is under control. Meanwhile, outside, people are looking up at the sky and thinking, "Sir, your roof is literally on fire." In Syzran, people were reportedly awakened by explosions, 6 of them, deep in the night. And if you have ever been woken by a loud bang, maybe thunder, maybe something falling, you know how the body reacts. Your heart kicks, your brain scrambles. Even before you think clearly, your body already understands danger. Now imagine that feeling multiplied across a whole city. This fear is not just panic, it becomes a message. And it is the strongest message Ukraine can send inside Russia's censorship wall. You cannot block real explosions with propaganda. State media can hide casualties, they can twist stories, they can invent victories, but they cannot hide burning refineries, blackouts, airport chaos, canceled flights, and people sleeping on suitcases in terminals that breaks through censorship like a hammer through glass. Now, let's zoom out. Because what we've been watching isn't random, it's chess. And Putin is obsessed with timing. These attacks happened just before the critical meeting between Trump and Zelensky. That was not an accident. Putin wanted to strike hard before the meeting to send a message. I'm not negotiating from weakness. I'm the one controlling the temperature. In fact, Russia made it very clear. They basically said they have almost zero interest in withdrawing from territories Ukraine currently occupies, which is a polite diplomatic way of saying, we are not leaving, deal with it. That was Putin's move. He wanted to enter the diplomatic moment like a man who just slammed the table. But then Ukraine flipped the entire script. Because after Putin tried to suffocate Kiev, Ukraine struck back in a way that hit Putin where it hurts most. Not the front line, but the image, the brand, the illusion. Ukraine's strike created panic at Moscow airports. It hit energy infrastructure. It burned the Syzran refinery. And suddenly, the whole world could see, Russia is vulnerable. That's a disaster for Putin's diplomatic posture, because diplomacy isn't only about weapons, it's also about perception. And Russia's perception has always been endless resources, unshakable defenses, unbreakable stability. But when Moscow can't even safely manage its own air traffic, let's be honest, that superpower image starts looking like comedy. Not funny comedy, the dangerous kind, the kind where you laugh and then realize, wait, this is actually serious. Zelensky has said repeatedly, Russia must feel consequences. And for the first time in a long time, those words weren't just words. They became images, grounded flights, emergency diversions, airport terminals overflowing, citizens experiencing war as reality, not as a TV story. This is how Ukraine turns war into bargaining power. Because when Russia looks weak, Ukraine looks strong. And in negotiation, strength controls the table. The question is no longer, where will borders be drawn? It becomes, how long can Russia survive this pressure? Now here is the real turning point. Putin's social contract with the Russian people was, I'll keep stability while you stay silent. But the moment Moscow shuts down airports, the moment energy infrastructure becomes fragile, the moment drones reach capital skies, that contract is torn into pieces. Russia's air defense doctrine was built on protecting borders, but now Ukrainian drones are flying deep into Russia, even over major regions. So the Russian state faces a brutal dilemma: either protect front lines or protect Moscow. They cannot do both perfectly. And once you admit that, you've admitted weakness. That is how empires crack. Not in one big explosion, but through a slow, humiliating series of moments where citizens realize, wait, we're not untouchable. Ukraine's unmanned systems leadership has already hinted thousands of drones are only a matter of time. And if that's true, then Russia has entered a future where no refinery is safe, no major city is safe, no infrastructure is guaranteed, no psychological comfort remains. And once that happens, you don't just fight a war on the battlefield, you fight a war inside the mind of your population. And that's a war dictators fear most, because people can tolerate suffering, but they can't tolerate being lied to while suffering. That's when anger replaces fear. Ukraine's strategy at this stage is becoming obvious. Diplomatically isolate Russia, militarily blind it, economically weaken it, collapse the home front comfort zone. And that dark night in Moscow was not just a strike, it was proof. Proof that Russia's safe center is no longer safe. It was the night the Kremlin's armor of invulnerability got pierced. And that changes everything, because Putin tried to suffocate Kiev, but ended up isolating Moscow from the world. The capital, Russia's showcase city, was suddenly forced to act like a city under siege, and when your capital looks like that, the world begins to rethink who holds the advantage. So let me ask you this. If the war keeps moving toward Russia's heartland, if refineries burn, if airports keep closing, if civilians start losing stability, could this be the beginning of the end for Putin's control? Or will Russia adapt and strike back harder? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to support this work, please like this video, it helps the channel grow. Also subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next, because from here on, this war is no longer a distant front line. It is fire above Moscow, and it's not going out anytime soon.